At the beginning of this chapter, I would like to discuss about the motivation process. Why ask why? Motivation refers to a process that leads people to behave as what they do. It occurs when a need that consumer wish to satisfy is aroused and the desired to end state is a consumer goal. Marketers are just beginning to explore the effect of incidental price exposure. Next is the motivational strength. Whether the need is utilitarian, the magnitude of tension it creates determines the urgency that consumer feels to reduce it. We call this degree of arousal drive. Drive theory focuses on biological needs that produce a pleasant state of arousal. Reducing it and returning to a balanced state called homeostasis. There is research evidence for the effectiveness of so-called retail therapy. Expectancy theory suggests that expectation of achieving desirable outcomes or positive incentives rather than being pushed from within motivate of behavior. Motivational direction describes that motivate have direction as well as strength. They are goal-oriented in that they drive us into satisfy a specific need. And next is needs versus want. A need reflects to a basis goal. However, in contrast, a want is a specific pathway to achieving this object. Hedonic consumption refers to the multi-sensory, fantasy, and emotional aspects of consumer interaction with products. Moving on to motivational conflicts. Consumers experience different kinds of motivational conflicts that can impact their purchase decisions. The very first kind of conflict is approach. A pupil have an approach conflict when he or she must choose between two desirable alternatives. For example, choosing Thailand or Japan for their holidays. The theory of cognitive dissonance is based on the premise that people have a need for order and consistencies in their life. Secondly, approach-avoidant conflict. An approach-avoidant conflict occurs when we decide a goal but wish to avoid it at the same time. For example, deciding a dream job that pays less or take a long vacation and falling behind the work. Finally, avoidant conflict is a choice between undesirable alternatives. For example, choosing between a low salary at work or unemployed. Marketers frequently address avoidant conflict with messages that stress the unforeseen benefits of choosing one opinion. Let's discuss how we classify consumer needs. Let's take a look at Murray's psychogenic needs. Henry Murray developed a set of 20 psychogenic needs that result in specific behavior, including autonomy, defensible, and play. Furthermore, specific needs and buying behavior also contribute to how we classify consumer needs. Other motivational approaches have focused on specific needs that there are ramifications for behavior. Some other important needs are need for affiliation, need for power, and need for uniqueness. Now let's discuss about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The psychologist Abraham Maslow originally developed his influential hierarchy of needs, which had 5 levels. For example, psychological, I eat what I grow. Safety, I feel safe in the garden. Social, I can share my product with others. Esteem, I can create something of beauty. And self-actualization, my garden gives me a sense of peace. Another problem with Maslow is it is too literally that it is culture born. This assumption may only apply to the Western country. Social scientists refer to raw reaction as effect, and there are many types of active responses too. Evaluation are reactions to events and objects that are not accompanied by high level of arousal. Moods involve temporary positive or negative affective states that are accompanied by moderate level of arousal. However, emotions tend to be more intense and often related to a specific triggering. Mood congruency refers to the idea that our judgment tend to be set by our mood. Aside from effect, we also have positive effect. One noteworthy effect is happiness. Happiness is a mental state of well-being characterized by positive emotion. Material accumulation, which is in seek up to earn more than we can possibly consume or handle, even when this imbalance makes us unhappy.
Regarding negative effect, we would first study about disgust. Researchers have found that disgust also exerts a powerful effect on our judgment and people who experience this emotion become harsher in the judgment of more offensive and offender. So that's the reason why advertisers often avoid presenting negative imagery in order not to bother people. But however, some believe that using negative feeling can be productive in provoking extreme response in some circumstances. So for example, the New York Department of Health has sold a TVC, and in this video clip, a man pouring a soft drink into the glass which is made of fat, and then he drink that god of fat drink, and the image here is really disgust, and it has awake the people awareness of the drawback when consuming a lot of sugary drinks. Secondly, we will study about envy. Envy is a negative emotion associated with a desire to reduce the gap between oneself and someone who is superior in some dimension. And researchers have distinguished between two types of envy, which are benign envy and malicious envy. So, for example, if you see your colleague having a well-paid job, and benign envy refers to the case where you admire your friends and you desire to have a more lucrative job than his or her. But however, with malicious envy, you will feel hostile and regard that your friend does not deserve a job, and you think that having a job is time wasting. So benign envy help you to develop yourself, help you to push yourself to go further. But while malicious envy will promote your hostile and will be more likely to keep you or lower your self value. And in marketing field, benign envy occur when we believe the other person deserves a desired brand like an iPhone, and under these circumstances, the person may be willing to pay more to obtain the same item. But with malicious envy occur when people believe that a person does not deserve his or her superior position, and in this case, consumer may not desire the product the other person owns, but they may be willing to pay more for a different brand in the same category, for example, Samsung Galaxy, to set them apart from the other person. Thirdly, we will study about guilt. Guilt is an individual unpleasant emotional state associated with a possible objection to his or her inaction, circumstances, or intentions. And marketers may try to invoke a feeling of guilt when they want consumers to engage in pro-social behaviors such as giving to charities. So take a TAP project of UNICEF, for example. UNICEF TAP project are people who having dinner at a restaurant to donate for the tap water they usually use with the free cost. And the campaign exploit guide by emphasizing two different images. One is the image when you could easily get access to the clean water, and the second image is the image of you with the opportunity to design that chances of providing water for those who are needed. And at the end, this approach has successfully raised funds and heightened social awareness about the global water crisis, and showcasing the power of guide appeal in driving pro-social actions. Fourth, we will study about embarrassment. Embarrassment is an emotion driven by a concern for what others think about us. And to be embarrassed, we must pay attention to the audience that evaluates us in consumer environment. When we purchase social intensive products such as condoms and tampons, we must try to hide that product in a shopping market and understand this embarrassment from the consumer. Cortex had released its new product line, which is Cortex Minimal, and this new product line is smaller in size, more colorful with cute pattern, and it is totally different from the previous product and from all the products from their competitors, and this had raised their sales a lot. And when the consumer used the minimal tampon, they won't have to hide it and caring about their judgment. And however, extreme guide appeal can fight back, so a more subtle approach is preferable. So, how social media tap into our emotions? Some research suggests that prolonged use of Facebook can lead to negative feeling, with users feeling like they're wasting their time. Besides, Facebook routine adjusts its new user new feed to see what happens when they see different ad format and number of ads. And sure enough, most are contagious. People who saw a more positive post responded by writing a more positive post. And there's no doubt that the emotional reaction we share with a network can be a treasure for marketers who want to learn more about how the offering make people feel. Sentiment analysis is a method that involves examining social media content to gather and analyze the word that people use when expressing feeling about a product or company. The focus is on identifying specific words that correlate with the emotion people experience. Then researchers create a word-free dictionary to collect data. So for example, a company is launching a new smartphone, so by applying advanced tools, they systematically gather and analyze social media content such as posts, comments, and reviews that related to the product to identify sentiment and pinpoint keywords associated with specific feature. So for instance, if positive sentiment focus on camera quality, subsequent campaigns highlight that feature. Coming to the consumer involvement part, involvement is a personal perceived relevance of the object based on their inherent need, values, and interests. The antecedent of involvement could be personal factor, object or stimulus factor, and situational factors, which could affect the involvement of the customer with advertisement, products, and purchase decision. So, coming to the types of involvement, first we will study about the product involvement. Product involvement is a customer level of interest in a particular product. The more closely marketer can tie a brand to an individual, the higher the involvement they will create, and product decisions tend to be more involving for consumer when they perceive a high level of risk, anticipating negative consequence if they make a wrong choice. So this is risk is heightened with expensive or complex product and in situation where the other may witness and potentially judge their choice, leading to embarrassment. So for example, a person who is going to a job interview may upset about sweating too much and give a lot of thought to the brand deodorant he used in the morning. Perceived risk is less a problem for consumers who have greater risk capital because they have less to lose from a poor choice. So, for example, a highly self-confident person might worry less than a vulnerable, insecure person who chooses a brand that their peers think isn't cool. So, what are the strategies to increase product involvement? So, here's a few ways to increase product involvement. Firstly is mass customization. Mass customization describes the personalization of product and service for individual customer as a mass product price. The second one is DIY, which means do it yourself. When we have the opportunity to personalize a product, our involvement increases because the item reflects our unique preference. When we build the product ourselves, the value we attach to it increases because our own labor is involved, and researchers call this item as IKEA effects. Third one is the co-creation strategy. Co-creation strategy step further because the company works jointly with customer to create the value, and in B2B environment, organization partner with their biggest clients to develop customized product, optimize their process, or reduce costs. And on the B2C side, business encourage customer to generate content, create platform for customer to customize their product, and creating contests or challenges. And the fourth one is gamification. Gamification refers to the application of game principles to non-gaming context. This approach offers a way to dramatically increase involvement, especially for activities that can benefit from a bit of motivation. So when the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation wanted to promote financial literacy, the government agency created its Money Smart program. It's designed to look like a board game similar to Monopoly, and it challenges players to learn financial skills such as setting up a bank account, paying bills on time, and avoiding identity theft. And the game attached more than 40,000 users in a year.
So the next type of involvement is message involvement, which refers to the level of immersion, engagement, and that individuals experience when exposed to a message or advertisement. Marketers can employ this strategy by using novel stimuli like unusual cinematography or sudden silences to capture attention. Additionally, creating a narrative transportation where individuals become immersed in the storyline can also enhance message involvement. Another kind of situational involvement refers to the engagement of individuals that have with a store, website, or location where they consume a product or service. To increase situational involvement, marketers can personalize the message shoppers receive at the time of purchase, tailoring recommendations based on their preferences. So, does the self exist? Yes, the concept of the self exists and refers to the beliefs that individuals hold about their own attributes and how they evaluate themselves based on these qualities. The self concept is a central aspect of consumer behavior and influences individuals' consumption practices. In Western societies, there's a strong emphasis on the unique nature of the self, with individuals focusing on themselves and sharing details about their lives through social networking services. On the other hand, Eastern culture tend to prioritize a collective self, deriving identity from social groups.
The self-concept is a complex structure. We describe attributes of self-concept along such dimensions as content, positivity, intensity, and stability over time and accuracy. A person's self-concept is a work in progress. Some parts are fairly stable, but each of us modifies some element of it as we make our way through life, and particularly as we discover new ideas, social groups, images. Each element that contributes to our self-concept is an identity. One way to define identity is any category label with such a customer self-associate that is amenable to clear pictures of what a person in that category look like, thinks, feels, and does. As we'll see in Chapter 7, marketers try hard to understand which consumer adopt certain identity and then develop products and messages that meet the needs of people who link themselves to a given identity. Self-esteem refers to the possibility of a person's self-concept. People with low self-esteem expect that they will not perform very well, and they will try to avoid embarrassment, failure, or rejection. Many people have a lot of stake when they think about how they look like and how this reflects their worth as individual. The ideal self is a person's conceptions of how he or she would like to be, whereas the actual self refers to our more realistic appraisals of the qualities we do and we don't have. We also often engage in the process of impressions management, in which we work hard to manage what others think of us. We strategically choose clothing or others' products that will show us off in a good light. As Tinder founders observe, first impressions matter. We are improving users to put their best foot forward. A third form of self sometimes influence what we choose to buy and use is our avoidant self. This refers to the type of person we don't want to be. For example, kids may work hard to avoid clothing or other items that may make them look like a nerd. A fantasy or daydream is a self-induced shift in consciousness, which is sometimes a way to compensate for a lack of external stimulations or to escape from problems in the real world. New virtual makeover technologies make it even easier for each of us to involve the digital self as we choose products to adorn our physical selves. Companies including Sephora or Mary Kay provide stimulators that allow women to see how their brands look like before they buy. Depending on the situations, we act differently, use different products and services, and even vary in terms of how much we like the aspect of ourselves we put on display. The dramaturgically perspective on consumer behavior views people as an actor who play different roles. We each play many roles, and each has its own scripts, props, and costume. Strategically, this means a marketer may want to ensure that the appropriate role identity is active before pitching a product that consumers need to play a particular role. Resemble when energy bar companies hand out to free product sample to runners at a marathon. Sociologists call the process of imagining others' reactions, taking the role of the others, or the looking glass self. According to this view, our desire to define ourselves operates as a sort of psychological sonar. We take reading of our own identity when we bounce signals of others and try to project their impressions of us. We tend to pattern our behavior on the perceived expectations of others as a form of self-fulfilling prophecy. When we act the way we assumed others to expect us to act, we often confirm the perceptions. Have you ever walked into a class in the middle of a lecture? If you were convinced that honor warned you as you awkwardly searched for a seat, you can understand the feeling of self-consciousness. Consumers who score high on the scale of public self-consciousness express more interest in clothing and use more cosmetic than others who score lower. Similarly, high self-monitors are more attuned to how they present themselves in their social environment, and their estimate of how others will perceive the product they choose influence what they choose to buy. Self-consciousness on steroids, perhaps that what we are experiencing in that historian looking back might call the era of selfie. One study analyzed 2.5 million images to determine just what kind of selfie tend to get posted the most, and about half of them were the people showing off their makeup, clothes, lips, and so on. There is one simple reason to explain this, because we can. But maybe there are other reasons as well. One explanation hinges on the concept of the empty self. The increasing focus on self-reliance in turn creates a culture of narcissism where we are obsessed with what we do and feel the need of constantly recording. Self-image congruence models suggest that we choose products that we think when their attributes match ourselves. And when we choose a product that we think is aesthetically pleasing, this choice makes us feel better about ourselves. These emotional connections even make people defensive on their favorite brand if they see negative information about them. Congruence model assume a process of cognitive matchings between product attributes and the consumer self-image. Researchers even report that after a breakup with a brand, people tend to develop negative feelings and will go to a great length to discredit it, including bad-mouthing and vandalism. Although this finding makes some intuitive sense, we cannot blithely assume that consumers will always buy products whose characteristics match their own. It is one thing to consider a brand personality for an impressive, image-oriented product, such as perfume, and quite another impute human characteristic to a toaster. People use an individual consumption behavior to identify that person's social identity. In the same way that a consumer use of product influence others' perceptions, the same product can have to determine his or her own self-concept and social identity. We are attached to an object to the extent we rely on it to maintain our self-concept. Objects act as a security blanket when we reinforce our identities, especially in unfamiliar situations. Symbolic self-completion theory suggests that people who have an incomplete self-definitions tend to complete this identity when they acquire and display symbols they associate with that role. The contributions of possessions to self-identity is perhaps most apparent when we lose these treasured objects.
The self including extended self, which formed by numerous props and settings as external elements.
Additionally, digital self that represent us in the online world. Studies have shown that there are 4 levels of extended self, from personal objects to place and things that make people feel like they're rooted in the larger social environments. The first level is that individual level, personal perceptions and self-definitions. To make it easy, the saying that you are what you wear reflects the belief that one things are a part of one's identity. The second level is family level, including a consumer, resident, and furnishment. The third level is community level. Consumers frequently define themselves by the place of origin. The last is the group level. Consumers regard their attachment to certain social groups like landmarks, monuments, or sport teams as a part of their self. Additionally, the self including embodied cognitions. According to the theory of embodied cognitions, products influence self-identity. To make it simple, state of the body modifies state of the mind. This saying suggests that behavior and purchases shape our thoughts. Also, we can give an example of viral postings illustrate how body language can change self-perceptions. The embodied cognitions approach is consistent with consumer behavior, so that brands with different meanings can change one's self-concept. Enclosed cognitions illustrate how individuals interpret the symbolic meaning of clothing and adjust their behavior. So, what is wearable computing? It's a tiny, implantable device can potentially simplify many daily activities. Take Apple Watch as an example. It can sense for sleep disorder and track ingestions of medications, measure blood sugar. Also, in addition, biohackers are individuals who are pioneering new ways to combine their bodies with technology. There's a robot named Sophia. Is granted citizenship in Saudi Arab. What is gender identity? Gender identity is an important component of a consumer's self-concept. People often conform to their cultural expectations about how those of their gender should act, should behave, or should speak, referred as sex roles. These change over time and they differ radically across society. Gender differences are certainly evident in many consumption situations. For example, women eat more fruit, men, otherwise men are more likely to eat meat. What is sex role socializations? A study analyzing 14 million reviews found that positive words like smart and genius are more commonly associated with males than females in various disciplines. Females are also more likely to face criticisms related to their appearance, with terms like frumpy. Additionally, children grasp the concept of gender identity at an early age, sometimes as young as 1 year old. Mothers often reinforce social expectations about how boys and girls, men and women should look and behave. As for example, males are more self-oriented and females are more other-oriented. Including in sexual socializations, gender identity versus sexual identity is an important component. Gender role identity is a state of mind. A person's biological genders do not totally determine whether he or she will exhibit sex-type traits. A consumer's subjective feelings about his or her sexuality are crucial. Focus on the potential role of hormonal influence, neuroendocrinological science, preference for different kinds of products or people. Unlike maleness and femaleness, masculinity and femininity are not biological characteristics. For example, a behavior that one culture considered to be
masculine might get a different response in other.
So let's move on to the next part, which is sex role socialization. And the first section, we will move on to identifying gender identity and sexual identity. So gender role identity refers to a state of mind as well as body, which contains femininity and masculinity, which are not biological characteristics. And sexual identity is mentioned the person's biological gender. So sex type traits are behavior and characteristic that we are normally associated with one gender or the other. So consumers' subjective feelings about sexuality are very crucial because it has certain influence on their preference of choice, as well as the hormones in our body play a dominant role in mediating this relationship. For example, one research indicates that women that are at peak of fertility are tend to dress more sexier rather than conservative clothes. Sex type products are referring to products that are intimately associated with one gender or another, and marketers tend to promote many sex type products by reflecting the feminine and masculine attributes so that consumer would like associate them with one gender or another, then started their process of choosing products. One case study has indicated that once we phase out a section for male and female, people are less likely to seek for gender-related icons to find their products. Women nowadays play a very different role than what they did in the past, so that marketers have to change their assumption about women. They are not handling only the soft role or the stereotypical female role in life, but some roles that are used to associated with male gender as well. However, it is still premature to proclaim that the traditional characteristic women are dead. Sex role constantly evolve and change from situation to situation in life, and contemporary young mainstream woman is the term that used to identify different role of women in life nowadays. They can be soft, feminine, to be a housewife, but also can be very pitiless when they are in the market. So while marketing to women, we have some notice or some tips. The first one is to rely heavily on social media because women are more likely and willing to adopt like technologies. Moreover, rely on emotional messaging is very contributive as well because women are likely to form a very like emotional bond with the products or the brand that they use. The third one is don't gender wash, with don't assume that all women are the same. And finally is don't fall into the shrink and pink it mentality, which assume that all the pinkish and sparkly things are for women. Our culture has a very common stereotype of men, which are they have to be aggressive, muscular, and tough. Advertisement for men also reported to have a very hyper masculinity supported content. Just like women, men has a very mixed signal about how they should feel and behave. How men they perceive masculine identities through their everyday consumption. They try to make sense out of the three model of masculinity, which are the breadwinner, who are successful and have organized achievement, the rebel, who are independent, and a man of action hero, who drawn from the best of the two models for behavior for men are much influenced in modern society as well. And however, the hypermasculinity has portrayed a very heavy impact, so that it may remain to influence how marketers would depict men and women down the road. So androgyny refer to the possession of both masculine and feminine traits, and androgynous people are people whose orientation aren't very clearly defined. Sex-type people refer to people who are traditionally masculine or feminine. So the normality of sex-type behavior. The normality of sex-type behavior would vary from culture to culture. There are more and more people who use the neutral pronouns, and there are consumers who reject to follow strict female or male category. Sex-type people are more sensitive to the sex role depictions of characters in advertisement, so that is one notice for marketer why they conduct advertisement. And there are also the new definition of non-traditional males that exhibit stereotypical female tendencies from straight male nowadays. Androgyny can open a very potential and new market for us if marketers expand the reach of their target customer by promoting the gender-bending products, which are the products that have traditional gender traits that are for the other gender. For example, there are cosmetic lines for boys nowadays. The Old Spice deodorant, which are originally for male, has product lines for women also, and there are also new services for boys in today's society.
So, what about lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, or in other words, LGBT consumers? The importance of considering LGBT community in marketing efforts is very essential. The unique needs and preference of LGBT consumers that can provide advice on how to effectively target this market segment. The evolving definitions of gender and the impact it has on consumer behavior has proved to be very unique. It's important for us to consider inclusivity and diversity in marketing strategies to appeal to all consumers, including LGBT consumers. When it comes to ideals of beauty, there's a significant amount of influence of culture and society on our perception of beauty and the ideals of it. Much like previous session, this part also highlights how marketers exploit our insecurities to sell products. The media is also identified as a promoter of unrealistic beauty standards through edited and photoshopped images of thin and perfect women. The pressure to meet these standards can lead to body image distortions, eating disorders. It also creates and facilitates online communities that promote false information and unhealthy behaviors, for example, like miracle weight loss. This is also followed by countering efforts by advertisers as well. There's been a trend recently for advertisers like those in France and CVS in the US to address these issues by disclosing digital alterations or pledging not to digitally alter images at their beauty aisle. So when we consider the body as a product, we usually consider the impact of societal ideals of beauty on consumer behavior. Marketers often exploit our insecurities about our appearance to sell products that promise to bridge the gap between our real and ideal physical selves. When we consider this aspect, we need to also examine the influence of social media and physical stores on body image and self-esteem. The evolution of beauty ideals over time and how they're influenced by genetics and cultural factors is also worth to look at. Overall, the significant role that the body play as a product in consumer behavior, it's important for us to look into.
My part will provide you an overview of the beauty ideals evolution of men and women across human history. Additionally, which beauty trend is popular and how marketers use it are a foundation for unique marketing campaigns that can draw more and more consumer and attention. Body decoration or mutilation is also mentioned, and its purposes in our society, and a new definition of vanity sizing that clothes manufacturers often apply. Specifically, this might be about how people act with social standard of beauty. The way people view their body also influence how they feel about themselves. Consumers go to a great length to fulfill cultural specific standards of beauty. That leads to a result that more and more consumers find to body modification. It can be tattooing, cosmetic surgery, piercing, or dieting. Because people strive too hard to live up to cultural ideals, the activities can occasionally taken to extreme degree. It's like eating disorder or illnesses often happen when women obsessed with thickness. The aspect of body decoration or mutilation can be used to distinguish between group members or non-members, designing a person's status or rank in a group, in a social group or gender category, for example, homosexual, and even give a wearer sense of security or good fortune.